Wait, no. That's not my final answer. No.
And we're down to 3.
Please. No!
I love this game. Stay with us. This is going to pay off. I promise you all.
Welcome to my world, ladies and gentlemen. From what
That's
my
good.
dad tells me, this is an important movie in the history of horror.
You think we should have skipped this one, Serling? Honest answer.
Yep.
I
Correct.
will say that just as a movie, this movie is not great. But as you said, there is a reason why we're talking about it, and that reason is 2 words, 1 name. Dennis Muren. I think he holds the record for the most Academy Awards ever won by a member of the human race. That's impressive. 9.
Okay, yeah. I admit that is interesting. I admit it.
Pretty damn impressive if you ask me.
Yeah, but as we may or may not uncover later on, Dennis Muren did much better
Yeah,
and
for sure.
more amazing and superb stuff.
And
than
influential
this.
stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you know who has been nominated the most times for Oscars? So Walt Disney, he was nominated for 59 Academy Awards.
Oh.
But do you know who was nominated for the next highest amount? 54 Oscars? It's someone we saw in concert. And don't say Jason Bonham.
Olivia Rodrigo.
John Williams.
Oh.
Nominated for 54 Academy Awards. That's an Academy Award for almost every year that I've been alive.
Okay, Dad. You gotta give me a daddy dumb sum for this movie.
You want a daddy dumb summary of this movie?
Yep. And no
Equinox?
big words.
Well, look, I mean,
If you say classic story, I'm
this
going to
is
throw you out
a
the studio door.
classic story. It's the template, right? It's boys meet girls. Boys and girls meet up with old science teacher. Science teacher dead. Science teacher house ripped apart by giant octopus thing.
What?
3 out of 4 giant things are stop motion things. 1 giant thing, forced perspective thing. Boys and girls find secret science teacher ancient book.
What?
Secret science teacher ancient book open different dimension. Different dimension bad. Different bad dimension release monsters. Monsters want secret science teacher's ancient book. Main boy survive. Non-main boy goes on to star in WKRP in Cincinnati, so really non-main boy wins.
Wow, that was awful.
That was great.
Let's do our recap. Compliments once again to one of our favorite books.
Yeah.
Horror movies of the 1970s.
Horror films of the 1970s. They're films, Serling. Show a little respect.
Our respect for John Kenneth Muir, the author who did a great job researching and rating these movies.
Yeah, these are fun books, and they're in 2 volumes.
Yeah, sorry if I mess up on a few words.
We'll pull you through.
Some words are too big for my tiny brain to comprehend.
You're about to graduate 5th grade. I think you can handle it.
Okay, so a young man named David Fielding is stalked in the woods by something evil after his 3 friends are killed. He makes it to the highway and is struck by a driverless car but survives the collision. I know. Only good thing in this movie, you know?
Not true.
A year and a day later, a reporter visits David, now a depressed, melancholic, in an asylum. Sad. David is a non-communicative, but
Quiet.
his attending physician shares information with the reporter about the disturbed patient. He plays a tape recording of an interview with David from the time of his admittance.
So, here's what he had to say. A year earlier, David, his blind date Susan, friend Jim, and Jim's girlfriend Vicky went on a picnic to a remote cabin in the woods to meet with Dr. Johansson, a geology professor. They drove up to the mountains, hit a dead end, and walked up a long cabin trail in search of Johansson's place, only to find it destroyed.
The foursome walked a little further and spied a giant castle on a glen.
Mysterious.
Yeah.
I'm just going to offer these little one-word
I know.
commentaries along the
Why?
way. Keep myself entertained.
And on their way to it, they hear a cackling emanating from the cave. Inside, a strange old man gave the 4 young adults a book. David attempted to translate... Stop!
Annoying.
David attempted to translate the book, written in Latin oldest language, at least until Dr. Johansson showed up, transformed into a raving lunatic, and stole it. David chased the professor to a creek where the old man died, relinquishing the book. While the group investigated the text, Yeah, that's the weird part. I'm not supposed to say that.
Yeah, we're leaving out some stuff here because we'll get to what we're leaving out and why later. The special book, 1,000 years old, soon revealed to the group that forces of evil coexisted with good on Earth, and the object of evil was to counteract its opposite. Johansson scribbled notes in the text, then revealed how he followed instructions and summoned evil manifestations. He saw physical instability in these manifestations, however, and was unable to control what he had released from Pandora's box. Frightened, David, Susan, Vicky, and Jim returned to the castle to discover that it had disappeared, apparently into the instability of another dimension.
Suddenly, a simian monster tried to kill the group and steal the book. The attempt failed primarily because David and the others had fashioned primitive protective icons out of the available materials in the forest. When Susan lost her crucifix, she became evil, infected by a demon, and David had to save her. She recovered sufficiently but was frightened. Then Jim was confronted by the same demon, who still wanted the all-powerful book. The ancient book. When Jim was pulled across the barrier of dimensional instability in the grip of a giant, David followed him to the netherworld. There, the demon tricked David and returned to reality, where he murdered Vicky. David and Susan combated the demon, now transformed into a winged devil.
And is also the coolest looking monster in this.
True. David and Susan combated the winged devil with a crucifix, but Susan was injured in the ensuing explosion. David escaped into the woods, but not before hearing a warning that the demon would kill him in 1 year and 1 day.
1 day.
1 year and a day later, a possessed Susan finds her way to the mental institute.
Oh, yeah, let's not give away the ending. That's one of the only, well, not one of the only good parts. There's so many good parts in this. But a little bit of a twist ending. I like the ending. You liked the ending, too. All right, what, trailer?
Yeah, trailer.
Okay.
What happened to Dr. Waterman? Only this man, last to see him alive, knows. Equinox. The invisible barrier between good and evil. The invisible barrier between light and the forces of darkness. The supernatural before your very eyes. As 4 teenage boys and girls fight a devil cult for their sanity, for their lives, for their eternal souls. Equinox, a story that defies logic, confounds belief. Dr. Waterman, wait!
I can't believe it. It was just a fall.
What is the secret of the 1,000-year-old book? What are the unspeakable horrors conjured by the forces of evil? What is the fiendish power of the ring that enslaves and destroys? What is the one symbol that can hold at bay the hosts of hell unleashed on earth? Equinox, proving again that there is more in heaven and on earth than is dreamt of in our philosophy. Equinox! Begins where Rosemary's Baby left off.
All right, Dad.
Yeah?
I know you're going to deep dive, so let's dive in.
Get my snorkel. So let's talk about the influence this movie had, because it's easy to write it off as you're watching it.
And tempting.
All right. But the most obvious influence it had was on Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead. Right down to some of the visuals of this movie. The spinning evil book, the professor who discovers its secrets and ultimately releases the evil, the kids who venture out to the remote cabin to find the book in the first place. It's all in The Evil Dead. A movie that gets a lot more attention and credit for what it did and is still doing. Another entry in that series came out like 2 years ago. But it's all here in 1967, 14 years before Evil Dead came into existence.
And it's sort of an influence on Devil's Reign with all the hooded figures in the alternate dimension.
Oh, okay, I can see that. And the book, Corbus, Ernie Borg, he's looking for
Ernest.
that secret book that holds all the power to free his tribe of cursed souls. And in Phantasm, as we will see, there's a portal to another world, and some of the shots are an obvious homage to this movie.
Oh, Dad, and it probably influenced another movie we did on this podcast.
What?
Cabin in the Woods.
Oh, yeah.
It's just the
'cause
whole
the
idea
title.
of a cabin in the woods,
Yeah.
and that it's the balancing point for mankind versus
yeah.
a race of evil demon gods.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, this movie kind of establishes the whole horror movie trope of a group of kids going out to a mysterious cabin, place where they shouldn't be, to release some sort of evil.
Recommended age. What would you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, for the 1967 version, and again, that's not with the extra stuff edited in when they released it to drive-ins. So you could watch the 1967 version of this when you're 10, right?
Yeah.
Would you go lower?
No, I did 10.
Yeah, because you have to have some patience with this movie, too. So you can't go too young. Go watch. Please go watch.
All right, let's go deep dive.
So, Serling, I have a couple questions for you. Do you still love me?
Yes.
Is this the worst movie I've ever made you watch?
Yep.
Are you terribly angry with me right now?
Yep.
Will you ever watch this movie again?
Nope.
Just maybe when you realize,
No.
once we've watched the next
No.
couple of movies on our schedule, how
No.
groundbreaking this was?
No.
What's your one-word review?
No. No, my one-word review is inspirational, but
Oh, that's a good one.
awful at the same
No, that's
time.
no. Let's stop the first word in your one-word review.
This inspired a lot of movies,
Right.
like Cabin in the Woods. The whole horror movie franchise ideas came from this movie.
Yeah, movies
This
would look a lot
started
different
it all,
without
I think.
this movie.
And I think this inspired people to make movies because this was made by like teenagers,
But yeah, like early 20s.
which explains the lack of awesomeness.
Well, let's say it explains the lack of professionalism and slickness.
What's your one-word review?
I said scaffolding.
I don't know what that means.
It's like what you put on the front of a building when you're trying to build something better or make improvements on it. It's like this movie is the building blocks of something way better, way more terrifying, way more thought-provoking and further influencing. But something needs to come along sometimes and introduce, like plant that initial seed for much, much, much better things to come. So that's what I think this movie is. What else came out in 1967? But first of all, this movie, when it was released, it made 100 times its budget of $8,000. 100 times. And how that happened was the guy who produced The Blob, a guy named Jack Harris, he saw this movie and he bought this movie. But he was like, I need to add a little something else to it to make it a little bit more professional, to put it at a length where I can put it into drive-ins. So he hired a guy named Jack Woods, who was an editor, and then he went out and got the same kids together like a couple of years later. So if you watch the version that we didn't watch, which isn't as good as the version that we watch, it has extra footage, but you can tell when they're cutting from the old footage that was shot to the added footage, you can tell there's a difference in the actors. They definitely aged, and some of them plumped up a little bit. And I don't think the stuff that they added was any good. In fact, a lot of it's annoying and distracting from...
So what did they add?
They added this park ranger character, the Asmodeus, who turns out to be another guy who's trying to protect the book and protect the dimension. And he's just awful. And a bad actor and an unnecessary character. And it just didn't work.
So you're not going to make me watch that version?
Oh, do you want to watch that version?
Nope.
I'll put it on
No.
that.
All right, so let's go into 1970 movies.
Okay.
Cry of the Banshee with Vinnie P.
Oh, right. We've talked about that before, but I've never seen that.
Scars of Dracula.
Probably with Christopher Lee, right? I'm guessing. Yeah.
Cauldron of Blood.
Cauldron of Blood, I've heard of, never seen. I haven't seen any of these so far.
Scream and Scream Again, which we have the poster of.
We do have the famous monster cover
the one that
of.
no one can see.
That's
There is a wall.
I think Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing are both in that one. It's got a great one sheet.
Yeah, The Body Beneath.
Mm-hmm.
Bigfoot.
I thought I've seen all the Bigfoot movies, but man, I'm really coming up empty on this year.
How awful about Alan?
That's the name of the movie?
Yep.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Well, I guess we'll have to watch that one in a couple of seasons because that's an H.
The Beast in the Cellar.
Come on, you gotta give me one thing I've seen from this year.
Whirlpool.
What was I doing in 1970? Oh, I wasn't born yet.
Bloodthirsty Butchers.
Oh, that one's great. No, I haven't seen that.
Yeah. And
Come on.
Count Dracula with Christopher Lee.
Okay, well, we saw that.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, boy.
Ooh.
That didn't feel good.
No.
I am not an expert on that year.
No, it is.
Let's go pluses. Obviously, the effects, given the context.
The impact and legacy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some movies we do just get released and they make their little plunk in the pond, and then those ripples dissipate, and that's it until someone else unearths it and tracks it down. But this movie had staying power in its influence, not just in terms of the story and how that wove its way into other movies that turned into huge franchises, but also in terms of, like you were saying, the teenagers who made this movie and what they went on to do, right?
Yeah, like they changed cinema forever.
Yeah, and that can't be overstated enough. So take Equinox out of existence, and absolutely movies from the mid-'70s onward would look way different in a negative and dull direction.
So this movie was kind of what Blair Witch Project was 30 years later.
Yeah, and multiplied at least like by 100 in terms of its influence. Not its impact at the time, but its immediate and ongoing influence.
I liked the ending because it was over. But I also did really like the ending.
With a little twist of, what's her name?
Susan
coming to kill David. I'll bookend that and say, I think the opening of this movie is really cool.
Yeah, I like that. With no one in the car.
It starts with the end of David's experience. So we get
Amadeus.
Well, in a different way than Amadeus was, but you're right. Salieri retells the whole story up until that point.
No one knows who Salieri is dead.
Well, I know that was the problem. That's what really put the chip on his shoulder.
Exactly.
No, but this starts off with, you get the last little bit of what eventually you will see play out in the whole movie, and it's a neat way of opening with a big explosion, and then you see these dead, bloody feet and a dark, looming figure over a gravestone. It's neat. What else did you like?
That's it.
I like the book flashback when they are finally cracking the code in the book, and you get the origins of the Necronomicon, and you get the spiraling shot of the book, and you get the little glimpse into that pit in the other dimension. You see those hooded figures diving into the pit. You didn't like that? It's all very Evil Dead, this part.
Oh, so like when the professor was talking about what he did.
Yeah, and how he opened the dimension. Yeah, that part I really liked. Any negatives? You probably don't have any negatives, so let's just move on to hmms. All right, Nate, give me one negative of this movie.
Okay.
You can't think of any,
the first guy's acting, David. The music was awful. The dubbing was awful. The old man's voice.
Yeah, a lot of this movie was shot outdoors, so they had to sync up the dialogue later in a studio, and that could be hard to do, especially with non-professional actors.
Mm-hmm. The voices.
The voices of what? The voices in your head saying, "Can we please not watch this? Can we?"
Yeah,
please
they
not
were
watch
so
this?
annoying. You know, the old man and David falls down a lot.
He does. David's clumsy and not a good actor and not a good stuntman, and that's a bad combination.
Photography was awful. And,
photography wasn't awful.
And the theremin was stupid and annoying. It was so awful, and it gave me a headache. I had to take Advil.
The soundtrack of this movie made you sick. Yeah.
I had to drink a bunch of water and take Advil. It was a lot. And I had to lie down.
It really, like, theremin when used sporadically can be effective, but not when you make it so loud in the soundtrack and you constantly leave it on that high, piercing note. Man, they went overboard with it. I agree with you. Mm-hmm. The theremin really made this movie a little bit worse. But back to the acting that you were telling about. There are points along the way in the movie for the actors actually trying. It's almost more lovely to see non-professionals doing bottom shelf work for $0, but seeming to care about it than watching a great actor like phone it in and take a big paycheck.
Yeah, especially in a low budget horror movie, because we've seen some bad acting in the other movies on the podcast.
Yeah, and I think you tend to forgive it even more in horror movies because they're traditionally made on the fringe and on the cheap. And in some ways, bad acting is more natural than like a quote unquote performance. So sometimes it's easier to put yourself in the scary moment when there's not so great acting as opposed to when someone's obviously playing a character and like reacting to the circumstances in a way that feels very directed.
Or like it's clear that they're doing lines from a script, even though they might be doing their lines decently.
Yep. Sometimes the writing itself can detract from feeling the realism of the moment, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And the story doesn't make sense sometimes. It does feel like a bunch of friends like just came up with some cool ideas and may have been a little bit of a loss on how to string things together correctly.
And coherently. Yeah, there's some story logic gaps, for sure.
All right, so believe it or not, I have a spotlight.
You do? Hey. All right, we should have done that before we got to the minuses, but what's your spotlight for this?
Dennis Muren.
Oh, of course. I can't believe I even questioned what your spotlight would be for
Disappointed
this.
in you.
Dennis Muren, yeah, tell us about him.
So he's a visual effects artist.
Yes.
He's still alive today, age 78.
And like we said, he's won the most Academy Awards of any living person.
For visual effects.
9
awards. And he struggled many years trying to find steady work as a visual effects cameraman. And the movies he did were Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Terminator 2, Jurassic Park, WALL-E, and Ghostbusters
holy
2.
Crud.
I know,
I
this
mean,
guy did a lot.
You could have stopped before he said Ghostbusters 2, but there are pretty good effects in that. But yeah, unbelievable visionary and genius, this guy. So nice. Good spotlight. And sorry he's still alive, because I know in the Serling Spotlight you love to tell us how people died. So
Yeah,
way to go, Dennis.
way to go. You couldn't have just died.
How about hmms? So things that don't fit into pluses, things that don't quite fit in snugly to minuses, somewhere in that middle dimension.
The stop motion effects.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't buy them these days. Of course not. They are incredibly crude.
But the fact that teenagers did this in the late 60s.
When your available resources were basically zero.
Yeah, I mean, these guys had a 16-millimeter camera, some friends who were patient and supportive, and
A lump of clay.
a couple lumps of clay. That's right, to make some monsters with. So
We don't even need to say
SGS moments. So let's dig into all the times Serling got scared, Serling got suspensified.
Sad.
Sad that we were watching it. Stultifyingly bored. No, it wasn't that bad, right?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Coolest
When you
kill.
get a headache from the theremin and you have to take Advil.
So Serling got sick. Serling got sick moment.
My
All right, so
God.
1. So we'll score this a 1 on the SGS moments. Coolest kill. 3, 2, 1. Jim.
Someone. I have no idea who.
What?
I have no idea. I was not paying attention to
Well,
anyone's
Vicky died,
death.
but you don't really see it.
Yeah, disappointing.
Susan doesn't die. I mean, I guess she does die because she comes back as a demon. And then there is that great shot of the winged monster, like, clawing at her and trying to pick her up. That worked really well.
I'm sorry, did you say great shot?
Yeah,
No, that
I
was
did.
not a great shot. None of the shots in this were great, Dad. I need you to step out of the studio and rethink your life.
Man, you're really throwing some tough love at me today.
Yep.
Well, I said Jim. Good old Herb Tarlick from WKRP. Because he dies in the other dimension, and then an evil Jim takes over and
I like
comes into
evil
our dimension. So that's who I'm going to go with, coolest kill. But not a lot of choices in this. Guess the tomato.
Ooh, what are we playing for?
Yeah, what are we playing for today? You think about that, and also think about, what do you think this movie got on Rotten Tomatoes?
5.
Nope.
10?
33. So it has the same Rotten Tomatoes rating as a movie called The Ward, which was I think it's the last theatrical film release of John Carpenter in like the 2008, 2009, something like that. There's another movie with 33%, A Million Ways to Die in the West, and that's written by and starring the guy who created Family Guy.
No.
Not a very good movie. Poseidon, which is a remake of The Poseidon Adventure. Watch The Poseidon Adventure, don't watch the remake. And The Waterboy with Adam Sandler.
No.
That got 33%.
33?
I would rather watch The Waterboy than Equinox again, I have to say. And also, this movie that we'll play Guess the Tomato for, this got a 33%. So this is when I give you clues, And then you try to guess what movie I'm talking about, and you get a certain amount of points, and the more clues you need, those points go down and down and down.
All right, I'm going to get Tic Tacs, man.
No, we got to play for something new. Let's give it...
Yeah. I'm going to go into the house.
And this is where I
Yeah.
stall for time.
Yep, you go stall.
Okay, Serling, tell them what we're playing for. What did we find?
Sour cream and onion potato chips.
Yeah, Ruffles. Sour cream and onion potato chips.
I don't know. What about the cheddar thingies?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
So we're playing for sour cream and onion potato chips. My favorite kind of potato chip.
My favorite.
One of my favorite brands of my favorite kind of potato chip. I also like the kettle chip variety.
Yes.
All right, so for 5 Ruffles sour cream and onion potato chips, is your mouth watering? Because I got them right here, and I picked them for size, so these are big ones out of the bag.
Those look really big.
So for 5 points, this movie is one of the sequels in a huge horror franchise, in the top 5 of most films in a horror franchise. So there are 12 movies in this horror franchise.
I really know what it is right now.
So you can get 5 chips if you know right now.
It's one of the Friday from the third. Friday
It is one of the Friday the 13th.
Is it the? It's either the 5th or Jason Goes to Space or something.
You're wrong on both of those. So should I eat these right now?
No.
You want another clue?
No.
All right, but I got to eat one because.
Do not. No.
Okay. For 4 points, you and I were in the town where a lot of this movie was shot about a year ago for our family reunion.
Connecticut.
But the town in Connecticut. So this movie was
Crystal
filmed in
Lake?
Kent. No, that's the fictional name in the movie. But a lot of this movie, this installment of Friday the 13th was shot in a little town called Kent, Connecticut, where your Aunt Blythe lives. And shout out to Aunt Blythe. We hope you're feeling okay.
Hi, Blythe.
Recently had some surgery, and we're sending positive vibes your way.
Yeah. Is it the 5th?
And we love you.
Wait, no. That's not my final answer. No.
And we're down to 3.
Please. No!
I love this game. The killer in these movies usually wears a hockey mask, but he did not in this one.
The 4th. It's the 4th one.
He wore a mask in the 4th one, all right?
No.
I'm getting
I was kidding.
full.
No.
For 2 chips, we're down to 2 chips. There's a controversial kill in this 33% horror movie from one of the biggest horror franchises. And my pick for the scariest movie in the series.
Third one?
It features a guy in a wheelchair.
Oh, the one where and he falls down the stairs. It's either the 2nd or the 3rd one. That's all I know.
I'm going to need an answer before I eat this chip.
2nd?
Yes, it's Friday the 13th, part 2. Here you go.
Give me my chips. Yay!
The last clue was, in order to survive, towards the end of the movie, the main pretty girl pretends to be the killer's mom, who was decapitated in the previous movie. Do you remember that scene? Mm-hmm. We may not have gotten that far in it. I know you've seen a lot of part 2, but I don't think you've seen all of it. You want to go one higher or one lower than 33% Equinox on Rotten Tomatoes?
Let's go 32.
Okay, 32% Jigsaw, which is the origin story movie for the killer in the Saw franchise. Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides. That's with Ian McShane as Blackbeard. We recently just saw him in Deadwood. I showed you a little bit of Deadwood. 34%, one higher than this movie, was Battleship. They made a movie about the game.
How?
Well, kind of like how they made a movie about Clue, but not even as good as Clue. Battleship. And a movie called Masterminds with Zach Galifianakis, who we love, and Kristen Wiig, who we also love. 34%. I'd watch that anyway because I like both of those guys. And I like The Waterboy, and they gave that 33%. So maybe we'll check out Masterminds. But not tonight, and not for this podcast.
All right, next time on DDSH. They're escaping from probably one of the most famous places on Earth.
Well, now everyone knows it's Escape from L.A.
Oh, yeah, right.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Yeah.